Hello everyone, welcome to the program. This is Sunday Politics, live on Channels Television. I'm Sean Kimberley, live for you here in Abuja. Well, it's been a very eventful past week that captured the intersections of power, policy, politics, and everything in between. And at home and abroad, we're monitoring for you what is going on with decisions that will help shape Nigeria's economic direction, the political future, and the daily realities of the average citizens. Well, this week, President Bola Tinubu returned from the United Arab Emirates after attending a high-level economic conference where Nigeria signed a new cooperation and investment agreement with the UAE. The presidency says the deals are aimed at attracting capital, strengthening strategic partnerships, and repositioning Nigeria in a competitive global economy. And this was what the president said there in UAE.
Nigeria stands with the global community, moving beyond ambition and towards delivery. The nation views the Nexus approach as an opportunity to align climate action with energy access, economic growth, job creation, and social inclusion. Sustainability. Sustainable development ensures that all systems, policy, finance, infrastructure, nature, and human capital must move together.
Back home, relief, at least for now, the federal government reached an agreement with the Academic Staff Union of Universities, ASU, halting the threat of another nationwide shutdown of public universities. The deal has reopened the debate about funding education, sustaining industrial peace, and breaking a cycle of agreements and renegotiations that has defined the sector for years. But at that agreement signing and an event in Abuja, the ASU presidency had some demands on behalf of his colleagues.
As we are here with joy for a successful collective bargaining between ASU and the federal government, we need to note that there are still pending issues which are more internal, that is dragging the progress and survival of our university system. Government persistent encroachment into the autonomy of the universities have not stopped. The Governing Council is legally the highest decision-making body of the Nigerian universities, and they are responsible for policy direction, financial oversight, and appointment of principal officers. In practice, however, councils are often subordinated to the whims of government authorities. A recurring problem is the arbitrary dissolution or suspension of governing councils by the federal and state governments, and the reckless intervention in the appointment of vice-chancellors.
That's the ASU president. But politically speaking, the drumbeats of 2027 are growing louder. We saw former Labour Party presidential candidate Peter Obi who formally announced his movement into the African Democratic Congress, ABC. A move that now signals early realignments and strategic calculations ahead of the next general election. But for those who are discerning, Mr. Peter Obi's statement is very instructive. Take a listen.
Those who benefited from our democracy sometimes now become accessories to destroying our democracy, either through coercion and gangsterism against the opposition. We cannot allow this to happen. We will resist it. We've now seen people who benefited in our democracy be part of celebrating electoral fraud publicly. And we are saying that those who are planning to rig the election in Nigeria come 2027, we will resist it by every means lawful and legitimate.
Instructive, isn't it? Because this year is very critical. So we saw a few days later, publisher and political former presidential candidate, Ms. Dele Momodu, also pitched his tent with the ADC, adding momentum to conversations about opposition cohesion, third force politics, and the search for a credible alternative. It was in Benin City in Edo State where Chief Dele Momodu made that move, where he was received by the very first national chairman of the APC, Chief John Odige Oyegun. Take a listen to what Dele Momodu said in Benin.
We are united enough, and we will be totally united by the time our various candidates emerge. At the beginning, there is always noise, people fighting. It is normal. But I can tell you, ADC already parades 2 out of the 3 top presidential candidates in the last election. 2.
Well, as those realities are dawning and the political actors and gladiators are joining forces and forming coalition and ensuring that their voices are heard, well, from the 1st of January this year, we saw a new tax regime officially taking effect. The federal government has insisted that the reforms are necessary to widen the tax net, improve revenue, and stabilize the economy. Well, critics, however, are warning of increased pressure on households and businesses already grappling with inflation and a high cost of living. Well, the central question remains, can tax reform drive growth without deepening economic pain? This development has raised fundamental questions about leadership, economic choices, democratic competition, and the social contract between government and the governed. So tonight, on the program, Professor Pat Utomi, a renowned political economics and public intellectual and advocate for democratic accountability, who will speak to his stand politically, and we do know what his stance ahead of 2027 looks like. He joins us live on the program tonight. Professor Pat Utomi is live for us from Victoria Island in Lagos. Thank you, Prof, and Happy New Year. It's good to see you, sir. Thank you, sir. I would like to begin the conversation tonight because a lot of people, and it's almost traditional for people to make their year resolution. So there are those who will make the 2026 year resolution. But in the midst of the resolution is also the citizens' engagement and what their expectations are for their government, because this year is a very crucial year that a lot will be determined economically speaking, politically speaking, election-wise, and we might determine who becomes Nigeria's next president for the next 4 years this year. Constitutional review is there, electoral law review is there. A lot is going to happen this year alone, and the government of the day will be saddled with a lot of burden on performance and delivery. Opposition is also need to come together and pose a very good opposition against the ruling party. From your own point of view, how critical is 2026 for any Nigerian?
Well, in many ways, 2026 is a watershed year for growth and development in Nigeria. It is a year in which we must raise consciousness for a few fundamental issues, one of them being election reforms. It is clear that a good part of the world does not take Nigerian elections seriously. Many Nigerians don't take Nigerian elections seriously. Even people on the streets say they won't bother voting because they don't think that our elections should be taken seriously. We must change all of that in 2026. I am part of a major initiative, a movement for electoral process reform and complete overhaul. I am part of even an initiative bigger than that original one, which looks at internationalizing elections in Nigeria. As you know, Sheung, I have for more than 20-something years argued that in a country with weak institutions, where state capture is easy and a few politicians can bully the population, that we must be able to externalize to supranational institutions. This is why I was one of the leaders of the campaign for an international criminal court in the mid-1990s. And I think that I am pushing that to elections reforms. Africa has a problem of legitimacy with most of its leaders because their elections are not credible. And I believe that one of the ways to make it credible is to have supranational institutions. I want to see somebody come in and arrest everybody who's worked in INEC and try them in New Zealand or somewhere and send them to jail there, because the Nigerian judiciary is in a position where you can't have decent engagement with people connected to power. So it has to be internationalized and let the world hold INEC responsible for us. If they can't, then the streets of Nigeria have to hold INEC responsible, because what INEC does matters so much for legitimacy, and legitimacy matters so much for the ability of government to deliver the goods of democracy to the people. So there is that front. There is the economic reforms front, obviously. So much needs to be done in Nigeria. I know that in these days of statistics and propaganda and all of that, all kinds of things are flying around, and that's good. Let the things that are being achieved be put on the table. Let rational public conversation take place around those. That's the way we strengthen our institutions. That's the way we build alternative policies. I hear so much about revenues, raising revenues, tax reforms, and all of that. It's all good. I think tax reforms are a very important thing. My play in the Nigerian political system started with tax reforms. That was what I promoted in 1982 that led to a major conversation that brought me into government back in those days. I think that we need tax reforms, but we have to discuss this in context, because tax reforms are of no use if you are not accountable for the use of tax revenues. This is why the Boston Tea Party took place. This is why the mantra exists: no taxation without representation. Because the idea of representation is that your elected representatives can then hold the executive branch accountable for the use of every dime, every kobo. But we know that the National Assembly is a bit of a failure, so we can't hold them responsible for holding the executive accountable. So we've got to find other ways of ensuring that your revenue, your tax money works for you. If it doesn't work for you, then you shouldn't pay that tax. That is a legitimate position to take. And this is, again, like I said, the outcome of the Boston Tea Party. We should also recognize that in the accountability frame, there are specific needs that people have that they can make a demand of a system to take care of. And part of the tax process is to ensure that those things are put before those who pay the taxes, which is one of the reasons I'm a big fan of specific use taxes. You know, collect gasoline tax, highway maintenance. Then you have a civil society group made up of road users, engineers, and so on and so forth, who have to literally approve how spending is made of the money that's collected from gasoline taxes for maintaining highways, so that it can be the benefit of those who use those. I also think that if we're talking taxation and all of that, that we must have a process through which we look at optimal levels of taxation. Look, seems like people are beginning to forget supply side economics. You can tax and tax and tax, but you can tax to a point where you don't get investments because people are taxed out, and you don't have what to tax down the future. I've talked several times, even in conversations with you, I think in years past, about a concept called TIFA funds, which local governments use in America, Tax Investment Finance Authority, which allows a local government, literally speaking, to give grants to businessmen. Grants, I don't mean even loans. Grants, loan guarantees, and so on and so forth. In the anticipation that if their anchor tenants, for example, develop a mall or some facility, that will lead to tax revenues of a certain amount in the future. So to get those future taxes, governments actually support businesses growing. But where you get a situation where you just tax and kill businesses, one day there'll be nobody to pay the taxes. And so going from a stream of nobody paying taxes. Jump in,
does these tax, because I mean, there are those who will say, give it to this government. You might not like it, but tax reforms were very important and critical. We needed it like yesterday, and it is happening. And there are those who are praising, giving this government some thumbs up to say, yes, it takes a lot of political and audacity, political will to be able to make it happen. But does this government look like what?
Not when you spend the money. Not when you spend the money recklessly. It's a good thing to have tax reforms. It's good for people to pay taxes. When you spend that tax money recklessly, it does not deserve to be paid. Secondly, I was talking about supply-side economics. Arthur Laffer was a professor at UC Berkeley back in the days when Reagan came to office, making the point. And the Laffer curve was offered as a good, sense for looking at optimal levels of taxes. So yes, tax reforms are good. Paying taxes are important. That's what makes you a citizen. People have to pay taxes and hold governments accountable for the taxes they have paid. But a certain level, taxation can lead to suboptimality, where you really get to a point that, you won't get more taxes down the line because people are not investing as a result of the taxes they paid yesterday. And we have to put a lot of things into context, by the way. It's easy for somebody in Washington to use Washington consensus argument to say, tax to GDP ratio. He hasn't told you who pays taxes in Nigeria and what else they're carrying. They're running their own local government, literally, their own water, their own light, their own, all of this. And then 3 or 4 extended families that are carrying them. And then you think of them in computing their tax in the context of the computing tax of an American who doesn't have to deal with any of those kinds of things. So it's a good idea. The tax reforms are good, they're important.
Yeah, but Prof,
let's make sure that we put them properly together.
We are seeing the early stage of the implementation of the tax, the new tax laws. Are there things that you have identified as flaws in the tax reforms or the new tax laws? Because we are seeing the early stage.
No, the flaws and whatever have been pointed out, KPMG and others, let the conversation go on. What I'm interested in having rational public conversation that leads us to a tax reform package that's good for the Nigerian people. We need those. We need new tax laws and all of that. And the various experts can contribute and have a rational conversation. And what comes out as best for the Nigerian people is very welcome. I think that is important. I'm not going to poo-poo tax reforms. They're important. We need them. But I'm going to make sure that they're not just revenues for people to spend. We need to look at maybe even constitutional reforms that limit how you spend those kinds of monies that you raise. Do we need balanced budgets? Do we need all of those are issues that we need to bring into conversation. So yes, starting the process is a start for rational public conversation. Once we can have a rational public conversation around those issues, then we can possibly make progress.
But I'm interested, Prof, as an economist, what do you make of these government decisions and policies economy-wise? So let's look at the micro and the macroeconomic policies of this government. And there is a pinch that also has on the skin of the average Nigerian when those policies took effect, when those decisions were made by the president, Bola Tinubu, and we are entering into his 3rd year in office. So there is no time for testing any longer. This is the time that Nigerians need to start feeling the effect. If you are one of the proponents of those who say when reforms are happening, there will be some tough curve for us to take as a people, but then is it now time for us to start seeing the dividends? In your own estimation, Prof, are we in trouble or there's light at the end of the tunnel?
Look, Shemo, I can only give you context for you to come to conclusion by yourself. I accuse myself. I was one of those who did SAP analysis 30 years ago. I was one of those who talked about a lag in seeing the effects of the reforms. And we use the J-curve to describe this lag and how very soon as a result of all of this, you will begin to see this happen, that happen. In fact, the book that I am currently writing, which unfortunately I didn't finish writing, I hope I will finish by now, is a critique of those policies, those sets of policies. Because what happened when we offered those as explanations in 1987, 88, 89, yes, some good things happened. Institutions emerged. The foreign exchange market became a market and, saved us a lot of trouble with the exchange rate challenge and all of that. But there were many things that Washington consensus policies were supposed to deliver. And the pushback on the state, withdrawal of the state, you talked about ASU earlier in your broadcast. The destruction of the university system came significantly from those policies of Washington consensus. The lag did not kick in as expected. And so I'm saying we have to be more careful as we rush and embrace this. And I embrace very much the way that Mahathir Mohamad responded during the Asian financial crisis to those same pressures. Blah, blah. Mahathir refused. And that led to the fallout, his original fallout, with Anwar Ibrahim, who was his deputy prime minister and finance minister. I was there in Hong Kong at the World Bank annual meeting of October 1997, where they played this out. And, the Western media tried to push Anwar as the reformer, the preferred person. Of course, Mahathir played Malaysian politics and got Anwar out. A few years later, the IMF would agree that Mahathir made a more intelligent choice than they were making. So I'm saying let's be careful as we rush to embrace these things, that we take our own context and analyze them more properly,
Prof,
and make sure we make what is best for the Nigerian people.
Prof, and I will put you on the spot, right? You're not responsible for the policies of government, but I know that you are a teacher of economics. And I want you to do some marking tonight. And in doing that job tonight, I would like you to let Nigerians know what to make of this government. Or else, if you have a problem assessing your very good friend, President Bola Tinubu, you know that he knows the numbers and you know his expertise. But are those expertise working? Should we make adjustment? We are in the third year. And we need to be careful. If we make any further error or mistakes in our economic decisions as a people, we might be headed for a disaster. How do you assess, how do you mark the examination that this government has entered into? Failure or way to success?
The person better placed to mark the example is the citizen. People on the streets. Ask them, are their lives better today than their lives were a year ago, 2 years ago, 3 years ago? And that's your answer. I don't have to offer an answer. I've been living out of the country for the last 2.5 or so years. I don't even have enough of a pinch directly of this. So ask the people on the streets, and they will give you an answer that will help you grade your exams.
Well, in the reality of it, you're following the numbers. You're looking at the growth rate. You're looking at the inflationary impact on the economy in general. You know what exactly. You are sitting right there in Lagos, the central point of Nigeria's commerce and trade. and you know what exactly is going on. You're one of the opposition forces saying that things could be better, and tonight we're asking the questions, what could this government do differently? If you were sitting in President Bola Tinubu's chair, what are those critical decisions that you will be making right now?
Good. I will still dramatically slice the cost of governing in Nigeria. It's way too high. I would use industrial policy to stimulate production. We're not doing enough to stimulate production. Active industrial policy. We're waiting and relying on these things they tell you in Washington that if you do, you will see this. No, it's not the way it is. Go and look at how the Asians got their own economy stimulated and running. We're not doing enough of that. I would go to local levels. First of all, I will ensure that we are all, to again go back to Mahathir Mohamad, in the same room, piecing out, rather than some people being outside, piecing into the room. There's too much division in the country. We need to go for consensus, inclusion, and inclusion facilitating industrial policy, even at the grassroots, to drive particular production. Look at even Ethiopia and places like that and see what they managed to do. And we should be doing that. But we're letting politics take over in Nigeria. Everything is politics, re-election. This, the people are suffering. Let's think about the people. Let's build a consensus amongst the Nigerian elite, looking at how to best serve the people, not, spending, public money like, it doesn't matter, whereas people are dying. It does matter. Those motorcades should come down. Those bloated allowances should come down. Let us look at Egypt. Look at what President Sisi is doing. Let's act like him. Forget those other people out there and see how he's driving real growth. And they're building Egyptian companies and moving forward. We're not doing it. We're too obsessed with politics.
Invariably, you are saying that perhaps this government has not taken cognizance of its own decision to say, we want to cut the cost of governance, and the report of cutting down the governance, that report has not been implemented just yet. It looks to me, and it sounded to me, that you are saying that this government is not prudent. Is that what you are inferring, Prof?
I'm not inferring. I'm saying it very straightforwardly. It is not prudent. And I've given examples over and over again. We should not. The National Assembly makes matters worse every day. We should remember that people are suffering. We should take scarce public resources and use it to create opportunities for people's lives to be better. What is happening in our country is that a very narrow political elite, which is disconnected, completely disconnected from the Nigerian people, is focused on its own conveniences and is running an economy that is not likely to grow because there are so many people piecing into the house to start with. And the problems that we need to take care of insecurity, stimulate production and all of that, not been quite dealt with.
I mean, are you disappointed at the trend of things, especially in the economy side of things? And how would you reflect, or how would you assess this government's statement to say, look, if they had not come in when they came in and intervened, that this country would have found itself under, especially from the economic policies of the Buhari government, and they describe as most disastrous. And some people have described the Buhari economic decisions as set Nigeria back 20 years in time. But this government has said they're making the reforms, they're taking decisions, and they are owning up to those decisions. But it will bring some pain, but in the end, it will bring gain to the Nigerian people. But do you agree with that notion or that narrative that this government has put forward? Or are you simply disappointed in what they've done so far?
Well, first of all, I thought this government was a continuation of the Buhari government. That's what they said themselves. I didn't say that. They said they were a continuation. They have come to further what the Buhari government has done. And by the way, the most important thing the Buhari government did was continue to print money and print money until the Nigerian economy was almost becoming a joke. Okay, yes, we stopped printing, but we're still borrowing and borrowing without thinking enough of investments that create wealth, that lead to production, and not seeing that you need champions for different kinds of economic activity we want to stimulate. I keep referring to the president of Egypt and what they are doing there. I think somebody should go there and look at what they are doing, the seriousness of their leadership. But we don't show that seriousness here, I can tell you for a fact. And corruption is more today in Nigeria than it was even under Buhari, which was terrible. Institutionalization of graft. How can you grow an economy when that is the order of the day? Look, they say policemen don't follow VIP around. Go to what they call the other people to get security. The other people are collecting incredible bribes from companies and all of that. They say, go to Abuja, go and tell them. They too are chopping there. When people tell me these things, they come back to me and say, Nigeria, who will save us? But we are not showing enough commitment to the things that are undermining the development of this country. Getting at them. We are not.
So
doing too much business as usual.
President Tinubu is not the Messiah a lot of people thought could come and save us.
I'm not in the Messiah business. The problem of Nigeria is really looking for messiahs. We don't need a messiah. What we need is collective ownership of the problem by an elite. Any president, anybody that gets into office, my view, and I've said this clearly, the people in ADC, is that no one person should be that powerful. There must be a college of people who say, okay, this is where we're going. We hold each other accountable. We hold this president accountable. He cannot spend money like this. He cannot do that. He cannot do this. I have seen it happen in this country. As a young person in public life, I used to enjoy going out of my office to go and, chat with the President Shagari, as he was taking his quiet smoke in the Dam barracks. And you saw a man who believed in collective engagement, collective leadership. Chief Adisa Akinloye would make his input. All people will make their input. But this one-man thing is not what leads to progress. And so we need reforms. We need to have, for example, representation. Okay, look, the incumbent, whether you believe the figures of the INEC people or not, has just 30-something% of the vote. When does 30-something% begin to dictate triumphally to the majority? But if we had proportional representation in the cabinet, in the National Assembly and all of that, then people will have rational, responsible conversation. If we rebuild political parties so that they are based on issues, what do you stand for? Who are you? A party today that is not looking at leapfrogging the business of how you produce in the AI world is not going to be a serious political party. But are the political parties given to thinking about those kinds of things? These are the things that will get us in the direction we should be traveling.
All right. Let's take a moment, Prof. But when we return, I would like to know the prospect of the political party you have aligned with, the ADC. And perhaps let Nigerians also know that know the options there are for them, that is available to them in that political party compared to what we have going for us, the president and the party candidate of the APC. We'll be right back. The choices before Nigerians, 2027 elections, and the present time governance, and what that means for the food on the table and money on the pocket. We'll be right back after this break, everyone. Join us again. Thank you so much, everyone, for staying with us. Professor Pat Utomi is a political economist, and he's been speaking with us right here on the program. Thank you so much, Prof, for your time tonight. I said earlier, part of my introduction, and I tried to take Nigerians and the viewers tonight back to some of the activities of the past days, which are going to be very crucial going forward into the year. Part of what is crucial is how the opposition political parties are organizing. You have aligned your political leaning towards the ADC, and it does look like you have a favored candidate in Peter Obi, for example. And there are those who will say tonight that if they have a choice presented to them, already it does look like the APC has made up their mind about the incumbent president going forward into 2027 to still get a ticket for a return or re-election. But the question Nigerians will be asking, who are those in that political party ADC? The accusation from the ruling party is that this is just a coming together of those who are frustrated or who don't think that they are aligned or they are brought into the scheme of things in the Bola Tinubu government. They just want Bola Tinubu out by all means. Is that the case?
You know, Shehu, there is need to have responsible conversation in Nigeria. People make statements that sometimes you wonder how much thoughtfulness go into these statements other than trying to create, certain kinds of mushy. First of all, the biggest challenge before Nigeria is getting its elite to come together. I've been talking about inclusion. If you want to be totally honest, I have never left the ADC since 2007. We went around trying to find people to come together. After we made the 2007 run with the ADC, and if you listen to Ralph Okenwosu in Enugu on 31st, he tried to talk about this. I went out trying to see how we could build these coalitions. At one point in time, that coalition effort included both the incumbent Tinubu and most of the people in the ADC today. Good, bad, ugly. If we are going to make progress, it is important to bring everybody into the house piecing out than some people outside piecing in. And this is for me, the big possibility that exists in this new ADC. There are so many people who have come into the house. If we could get them together and they agree that they can work together, infused with new blood, they may be old blood. I have working groups that I have built through the years. Many are professionals who have held leading positions in public and private sectors, but may not have been active in elected public office. And they constitute a big group that I lead. And in the next couple of days or weeks, we will come forward with this group. You see 200 of the best minds in Nigeria together. And we're saying we all together are part of this coming together of the Nigerian elite to find consensus in how to govern our country for the common good of all. So if the people who are saying those are disgruntled people, who are the people in APC that are undisgruntled people? Why is everybody trying to join one party, damaging democracy in our country? Why is the APC trying to damage every political party outside of the APC?
But
Look,
Prof,
my argument for...
Prof, the question here is that why should any Nigerian or why should Nigerians trust the ADC? Why are they...
That's what I'm trying to tell you.
Yeah. Why?
I'm trying to tell you that. I believe that in the next couple of days, the ADC will probably announce its policy group. And part of what I am hoping that policy group is going to do is say, this is who we are. This is where we believe Nigeria should be going. This is how we will get there as Nigeria. And I have some acronyms I've thrown out already that capture this business of leapfrogging both values and specific industrial policy ideas that will make it a party focused on production, generating what has eluded Nigeria the most, a simple thing but fundamental thing called power, and then using it to drive entrepreneurial people's capitalism. This is the kind of group that I am coming with that will hope to be the base
but Professor Utomi,
of the ABC as a transforming group.
Yeah. Your response to that has not answered the questions of those who think that ABC still looks like a recycling of the characters or the kind of people that are around this country over the years without
ABC
results.
Is not a recycling.
So why
APC is not a recycling?
That's the question I'm asking. If there are no new personalities.
It's a meaningless concept. Those no personalities are there. They're there. I just told you about these 200 people that are part of my core group. They have not held public office in Nigeria. They have led companies. 200 of them, leading people, and they're coming with me. We're going to stand on the podium in a few weeks and say, here is the heart of the new ADC. And we want to make Nigeria a robust meeting of the Nigerian elite where consensus is shaped for the Nigerian people and the focus is on the common good and the advance of the ordinary citizen.
Yeah.
This is the ADC that I see.
Yeah, quickly, Prof. For someone who almost got killed in a line of fire during the Civil War, so you understand what the unity of this country is concerned, it means. You understand what fairness game is in our politics. And
Absolutely.
You have aligned with Peter Obi, for example, and there are those who are saying, look, Peter Obi would only get a vice presidential ticket, realistically. And those who have seen the future of what ABC portends for this next election, do you think?
How did they see it?
They
with
think
what
that,
binoculars
they think that no matter what, Atiku Abubakar will clinch the ticket of the ADC. And that for some reason, Peter Obi might just get the vice presidential ticket. In your own view, what would be a fair game in the ADC? To go south or to go north? In terms of...
occurred to you, has it occurred to you that I am infinitely more qualified than all of them, including Bola Tinubu, in terms of preparation to lead Nigeria? Has it ever occurred to you?
I know evidently well that... Hello, Prof, can you hear me? I know evidently well that a most qualified Nigerian to run this country. But for some reasons, you have tried it, but it hasn't worked. But since you have pitched your tent with Peter Obi, and I'm asking you that it's so important that the logic of zoning arrangement has come into force in our nation. If Peter Obi, for example, that you have always pitched your tents with, does not get a ticket, does he give you a fair deal?
By the way, I think you make a very, very erroneous impression that I've always pitched I have a certain set of values that I think are important. And when I looked the last time and found that the values more closely aligned were his, I supported him. But there's no way I've said I will always support this person. No. If I have a better set of values aligned, I will support that set of values.
So, see my question. Do you think that the ticket of the ADC should go south or north in terms of zoning arrangement?
I think that if we pull the Nigerian people together and the people with character to lead that process can be part of a team that will hold each other accountable. And that's what matters the most for Nigeria.
Give me another moment, Prof. We'll take another break, but I will be getting your final thought on the program for Nigeria and the way forward. We'll be right back. Thank you so much, everyone. And let's get a final thought from Professor Utomi. There are those who think, Prof, that this year is going to be very crucial, and the 2027 election is going to be a walkover. ADC, no structure. APC has gotten control of so many states of the federation, and for them, that political structure gives a taste of the kind of victory that they have envisaged. And they say that Bola Tinubu's return to power in 2027 is almost guaranteed. Just in about 60 seconds so that we can close, Prof. What are your thoughts about how the race could pan out in 2027, Prof?
Don't you think that people will listen to you and think that you are a megaphone for a premeditated position that's trying to push some idea that our reality does not bear out? And you have to, as a public commentator, be careful with the way you frame things. Now, the truth of the matter, check how many APC governors actually won their states in the last election. Check how many. Very few. The logic is that maybe if so many of the governors join, they can then cheat the way that was done in Port Harcourt or somewhere, and therefore the victory is assured. I want to tell you, it won't be like that. Tomahawk missiles will end up in the back of some people's backyard. You know, Nigeria cannot continue the way it has been. You said some things about elections, you had your chance. Look, when I ran in 2007, I was at lunch after the election with the then former U.S. Secretary of State Madeleine Albright and former Canadian Prime Minister Martin. And they said to me, what did you people call what has just happened in your country? The world for a long time has known that elections don't take place in Nigeria. And Nigeria cannot continue like that.
All right, Prof.
If it goes that way in 27, there may be no Nigeria after it.
Thank you so much.
So let's be careful.
Professor Utomi, thank you so much. I'm able to provoke you to tell Nigerians the way things are. But these are the permutations of some of the politicians on the other side of the divide. But thank you so much, Prof. It's a pleasure having you on the program tonight. Thank you so much indeed.
A great pleasure.
Thank you. Well, just before we go, everyone, and this is my final word. So, Nigerians, let me ask you, what is your plan for 2026? What exactly do you expect from government this year? And what are you prepared to demand, defend, or to reject? These are not casual questions. They are urgent because 2026 is not a year for spectators. It is a make or mar year for Nigeria. A year when economic direction will either begin to make sense or grow more painful. When constitutional and electoral reforms will test our seriousness as a democracy. When new tax laws will touch homes and businesses, and when politics ahead of 2027 will move from whispers to full volume. Politicians will come. They will come with promises, packages, and persuasion. The question is, will citizens be wise, vigilant, and actively involved, or will sit on the fence and complain later? Inflation is still biting, incomes are stretched, and survivors become a daily calculation. In 2026, your decisions, what you support, tolerate, or oppose, will shape your immediate and near future as a citizen. This is the year citizens must lean forward, not lean backward. For our president, Mr. President, this is also your defining stretch. As you sit in that chair in the presidential villa, perhaps for the first time, for full working cycle of the year, many Nigerians imagine you will be opening a crucial file on your desk. Call it a priority file. Inside it should be a clear checklist. What must be done, by when, by whom, and how successes will be measured. KPIs, timelines, consequences. Because this is the moment to be firm. Anyone incapable of delivering now is the time to weed them out. Nigerians are watching, waiting. To be fair, your administration has taken two major macroeconomic decisions that many before you avoided. The removal of the petrol subsidy and the unification of the foreign exchange market. Painful? Absolutely. Necessary? Many economists say yes, but, and this is a big but, you promised that the pain would not be permanent. During the campaign, you made it clear. Pledges to fix the economy, restore security, and reform governance so corruption and waste no longer choke opportunity. These are not slogans. They are expectations. As you said in your inaugural address, Nigeria is in a difficult situation. Nigerians agreed. They endured. Now they are asking, when does this relief begin to show? And let's not pretend the politics won't be intense, because it will. The opposition wants you out, President. Campaign calculations for 2027 will dominate 2026. Distractions will come thick and fast. Cheerleaders will tell you all is well, even when the streets say otherwise. But listen carefully, Mr. President. The poor, the working class, the small business owners, they are carrying the heaviest load. They are not asking for margin. They are asking for empathy, protection, and visible progress. Mr. President, it is in the national interest that you succeed. A failure of your government will be a disaster for Nigeria. A success would stabilize the country and reset hope. And Nigerians, this is a path for you in 26 is a year of active citizenship. No sitting on the fence, no political sleepwalking. History is knocking loudly, and how this year is handled by leaders and by citizens will determine how Nigeria's story is written next. Listen closely, decide wisely, act deliberately, and that is my final word tonight, everyone. Many thanks for watching. I'm Sean Wakimale. God bless Nigeria.